אני אומר באמונה שלמה שהתפילות קדמו לאלוהים. התפילות יצרו את האלוהים. האלוהים יצר את האדם. I declare with perfect faith that the prayers preceded God. The prayers created God. God then created human beings. And human beings create the prayers that created God that creates human beings. How do we do this? Our Sedra is Breshit, Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 and following. How do we do this? Simchat Torah marks the reading of the closing verses of Deuteronomy and then the reading of the first verses of Genesis. The word simcha means joy. Simchat Torah, the joy of Torah. Zman simchatenu, the time of our rejoicing. A time for dancing, for celebrating with friends. Torah tziva lana Moshe. This is the Torah commanded to us by Moses. Sisu v'simchu. Rejoice and be glad on Simchat Torah. I'm far from being an expert, but there is something about a rave that seems to require young adults to begin their celebrating in the dark of the night and to dance the sun back into the heavens with dawn. How do we do this? This particular rave ended in what was nothing less than a pogrom, a heartless slaughter of the innocent celebrants. 260 died in a relatively short span of time. Bereshit, in the beginning, the earth was formless and void. Into that vacuum, God placed 260 young victims, their bodies brutally ripped apart. If our prayers created God, then God created mass slaughter. See, Hashem? See? See what has happened to us? Oi, no distant memory, but current reality unfolding under your satellite gaze. Hayalanu, what has happened to us? Young people massacred, kidnapped, humiliated. Oi, a medieval pogrom on holy soil. Who can fathom the brutality? Hayalanu. The seasons are overturned. Oi, parents wail and children take up arms at the time of our rejoicing. Zman simchatenu. Oi, mehayalanu. Young women, men, children, elders killed, taken, violated. Oi, mehayalanu. And in your own land, the hope of generations, we said never again. Oi, mehayalanu. Our skin burns like an oven. Oi, the shame of our weakness flickering across screens. Oi, mehayalanu. Our leaders are mired in disgrace. They failed the people, putting their own interests first. Oi, mehayalanu. Return us, restore us, renew us. Hashivenu Hashem elecha v'nashuva chadesh yamenu kekedem. More Jews were murdered on that Saturday on Simchat Torah than on any single day since the Holocaust. What do we do with that? Rabbi Kerry Tooling notes that biblical scholars tell us that the Genesis narrative reworks other creation myths that date back to the time before monotheistic Judaism evolved from a variety of polytheistic Canaanite religions. In these older versions, the God of creation fights with the God of chaos to create land. The reworked narrative reflects the worldview that God is in control. God is in control. And that the world follows predictable patterns. This timeline is a poetic metaphor that the world is orderly and purposeful, reflecting the will of the Creator. There's also a second creation story in our text, the one about, Adam and Eve. We tend to read the two stories as a continuous narrative, but they're distinct. The order of creation varies between the two narratives. In the first story, male and female are created together. But in the second version, Adam is created before Eve. They enjoy the Garden of Eden together until their sin causes them to be evicted. Many commentators have worked to make sense of these events. Maimonides, medieval philosopher, suggested that when Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden, they spent their time basking in the glory of God. This glory is energy that flows from God and animates all things. When Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, they shifted their attention away from God's glory to the world around them. Adam and Eve's turning from God was the reason they lost their immortality. But we can also read the Adam and Eve story as a narrative about the human condition, the normative human condition. When we are children, we live in Eden. All our needs are met, and we are not required to till the soil. Eventually, we grow up, unfortunately, become adults, and must work for a living. We begin to learn the ways of the world. We must leave Eden in order to feel pain. However, growing up also means gaining knowledge. When we gain that knowledge, we become aware of our ability to influence the world around us. We learn to take responsibility for our lives, leaving behind the familiar as we venture into new, unfamiliar realms. Viewed in this light, Adam and Eve's misbehavior is a natural part of the human condition. We all fall short and have to face the consequences of our behavior. But we have our family, our community, and our relationship with God to show us the way. The opening chapters of Genesis speak an unshakable truth. Creation, no matter how we understand it, cannot ever lead to a perfect world. Despite all of the efforts of Torah commentators, despite the wishful thinking of theologians and philosophers, if Genesis is ever to be understood as speaking truth, neither Adam nor Eve can ever be free of sin. Even as the earth can convulse in earthquakes, so can human beings convulse in bad choices, bad decisions, bad luck. My friends, human condition. We will always reach for the forbidden fruit. We will always lie to God and to ourselves. We will always damage the ones we love the most. We will always disappoint those who depend upon us. We will always corrupt the pure offerings that we try to bring. Genesis speaks great truths. We're complicated. We're not reliable. We mar the beautiful. We deny the testimony of our minds and of our hearts. Genesis exists as a gift to those of us who care, a gift that can train us to reach for the noblest and truest in life. So don't be surprised when Abraham lies, because Genesis describes the human condition, or when Sarah acts with cruelty. And don't be surprised when blood flows across our own lands. Don't judge yourselves harshly when you feel an ugly rage demanding vengeance. Just don't give in to that rage. In pain, in excruciating pain, we condemn our enemies. We know that. For thousands of years, we imperfect creatures have sought to secure moral foundations for our lives. So, condemning our enemies leads nowhere. At other periods of great horror, the following was written: "Let the lioness rise up, Hashem. Let her rise up in her magnificent power. Let her shatter the mountaintops with her deafening roar and devour those who provoked her. As you promised, blessed are those who bless you. Cursed are those who curse you. Return us, restore us, renew us. Hashivenu Hashem elecha v'nashuva. Chadeshamenu kukedem." Having briefly staunched our wounds with bitter words that flowed from uncontrollable circumstances, we know that at the end of the day, we must go back to trying to create a world suitable for God. It won't be a good week. It will be a difficult week. I'm here. You're here. We care for each other. We are imperfect, but we know where the moral foundations of our lives can be found.